Powerline TV, power to transform lives.
Welcome to another week of Family Life with Mama Rita. It's getting interesting week by week. Last week, we had Brenda Lewis, a social worker, advocacy for domestic violence in the UK. And then we also had Dr. Vanessa Appiah, a consultant physician in sexual health and HIV medicine, clinical leads for sexual health in Brad's Health in London. Brenda and Dr. Vanessa, thank you so much for appearing on Family Life with Mama Rita. You were super. Shall we give them a shout? Thank you and thank you and thank you. You were such a blessing. I personally learned so much from the two of you. If you are joining us for the first time, this is Family Life with Mama Rita. Well, I was in East Legon Church, Emmanuel Temple, and guess my introduction. Somebody introduced me on Sunday as a love doctor. Oh my God. But today, I have somebody special. I am a love doctor. He is a family coach. My darling, when love doctor meets family coach, it is something else. With me in the studio, last week you joined me to the UK. Today you are joining me to the US. With me, please forgive me if I don't pronounce the name very well, is Joe Centineo. Oh my God, please clap for me. Pastor Joe has spent the past 30 years in ministry. He was a youth pastor for 17 years in the New York. And then now in Texas. In 2002, Pastor Joe founded the Crossroads of Arlington Church and is presently the lead pastor. He makes his home in Arlington, Texas. He's married to a beautiful lady, Tony, and are blessed with 3 adorable, I won't call them children now, but adult children. One of them is currently married. Pastor Joe, thank you so much for being in the studio with me.
Well, that was a pretty good introduction. Thank you for that. And we're Italian. So my wife's real name is Antoinette, and we call her Tony.
Oh, Tony, but she's Antoinette.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow,
So
wow.
It is really great to be here.
Wow, I think she's the second lady I know as Antoinette.
Yes.
I have one of my spiritual daughters who is called Antoinette.
Yes.
Thank you and welcome to Ghana. How has your stay in Ghana been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. I'm staying in a beautiful place. I don't know where it is. Everything looks the same to me, but once I get in that place, it's beautiful.
Wow.
It's a great place.
Wow. Have you eaten any Ghanaian dish?
Yes, of course.
What have you eaten? So, tilapia?
What's that kind of rice?
Jollof rice.
Jollof.
Oh my God.
love that.
I don't know if you've heard about the Nigerian jollof, but the Ghanaian jollof is always nicer. Don't even try the Nigerian jollof. Ghanaian jollof is the best. is the best.
Yes.
I hope the Ghanaians are listening to me, please. I am the one here. And our jollof is nicer. Yours is too. Ours. Oh, but you're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
In the past few weeks, we've been handling domestic violence. We had a lawyer come to talk to us about domestic violence, what you must do as an individual. We had victims, and oh my God, we all cried in the studio. They spoke about their experiences, how their husband physically abused them, and oh my God. Do you have domestic violence in America?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of it, and it seems to be, it's being dealt with now.
Okay.
Because it's looked down upon, frowned upon very much so by society. We've had a lot of high-profile athletes who have been found to have domestically abused their girlfriends, their wives, and they have gotten in a lot of trouble. So it's something right now, I think men are walking on eggshells, and rightfully so, because if a man is even accused of having physically hurt his girlfriend, then he will go right to jail.
Go right to jail.
Right to jail, no questions asked. They believe the woman. Sometimes the women, most of the time they are telling the truth, but I know of situations where
certainly.
it hasn't been true, but the man still goes to jail. So I think right now men are realizing that this is something, of course it's been happening for years, all throughout history, but I'm grateful that in America they're stopping it.
Wow.
Because it shouldn't be, obviously, we know that.
My darling, I hope you are listening. I hear in America you go to jail. And last week you heard from the UK that now there's help. And trust me, it's not going to be an American thing, it's not going to be a UK thing. It's coming to Ghana, where when you abuse a woman, especially physically, you will go to jail for it. I hope you are listening to me. But Pastor Joe, what is the cause of domestic violence?
You know, I have a limited, this is not my expertise, but I do know about this. And I think pornography is a big part of it. Because women are objectivized, they are looked at in a sexual way, and so it creates this dynamic where a woman is there for a man's pleasure.
Okay.
I know that the situations I've dealt with have always involved drugs and alcohol.
Drugs and alcohol.
Well, a man, he is under the influence of something, and then he is able to lash out, and he's not in control of himself, but he's doing things in a way, and he's using his physical dominance. We know that men and women are equal, but men tend to be bigger and stronger, and he uses that dominance, and went in a situation where they don't want to turn him in because they don't want to be left alone, but you can't stay with someone, and it's a horrible thing. And we have women's shelters and different places that women can go to be protected when they're in that situation.
Wow. My darling, I hear if you're an abuser, it means you're on drugs. So now, anybody that abuses the wife, I would assume that you're on drugs. We will take you to the psychiatric hospital. But do you think do you have instances in the US where men are also abused?
Oh yes. I just had a situation last week where one of my friends had to actually, he had to call the police on his wife. Now, he started it out by he's pursuing divorce. She's been with him for many years, and she was so angry, and she did physically abuse him and beat him, and so she actually went to jail, and they got her out, and he's not pressing charges. But it is much.
She went to jail.
She did go to
jail. So
jail.
it means that it's not only the men abusers who will go to jail, but the women abusers will also go to jail.
Yes, and I think it's by and large much more with the men to the woman.
That's
but
true.
It does happen the other way. And I think what happens is we get into these codependent relationships, and we're stuck with them, and we don't realize that. And I don't believe, now we're going to talk about marriage, and I don't believe in divorce, because if God hates it, I hate it. But when abuse is taking place in a marriage, at least you must separate until that is gotten under control, and then you can work on bringing the marriage back together. Oftentimes with the abuse, it's difficult to recover for a person to trust that other person again. But the codependency, they allow it to continue on and on and on. A lot of it starts in the dating relationship.
As a marriage coach, what do you think an individual or a couple can do to prevent domestic violence? What do we have to do right from the beginning? Is it that we don't pray enough? Is it that we don't see before we get married? Is that something we are doing wrong that causes domestic violence in the home?
Can I broaden the perspective?
Please do.
Okay, so I've been in ministry 35 years.
Wow.
I was a youth pastor for 17 years.
Okay.
And this Sunday I'll be speaking at the church, and I'll be talking about fathering, the importance of fathering and parenting children. But I started a church, and then I now had to deal with marriage, and I was running into, I've always done pre-marriage counseling for the youth that I was working with. Wanted to get married, they would come to me, and I would do good pre-marriage counseling. But when I pastored and started a church, I began to do marriage counseling, and I wasn't so good at it in the beginning. In fact, they would come to me and I would try and work with them, and then one or both of them would get angry at me because I would hold them accountable. And then they would get angry, get divorced, and leave the church. So I decided I'm not going to do any of this marriage coaching. I'll refer them to professionals, and I'm going to prepare people for marriage to prevent the problems. However, as I pass people on to the so-called professional counselors, they were still getting divorced. And I found that there is not a lot of good counseling that helps couples deal with their issues. So the Lord told me, He said, Joe, you're a pastor now. You must take care of your people. And I began to re-engage and do marriage coaching. And I took it from a different perspective, because a lot of the people that were coming to me were in crisis. They would come to me with a big crisis, and I was more like a referee. And trying to, but I began to take a proactive approach, and I began to do what I call marriage coaching. Now the reason I call...
So when you say marriage coaching, what exactly does it mean?
Well, we're gonna deal with the crisis, but that's not gonna be our focus. And first of all, men don't like the word counseling.
Men don't like the word?
They particularly don't want to go to another man and have him tell them how they should be getting along with their wife. There's a pride thing there. So I used the term, instead of counseling, I changed it to coaching. And I decided I would deal with the crisis, but then I would coach them, and I would help them to learn how to do certain things that would prevent them from getting into the place that their marriage was becoming toxic. The toxic marriage is the most difficult thing to deal with, because it's when two people, through a series of doing things the wrong way, they create a dynamic where they bring out the worst in each other. And sometimes, you have usually an aggressive, confrontational person marries a passive, non-confrontational person. Well, they come together and they're real happy because they're very different. But as they get married, they develop negative tendencies, and the aggressive person begins to dominate the passive person. The passive person holds everything in, it explodes. And now they have situations that are very serious. So I try to isolate the crises and deal with the things that will help them learn almost how to start over and how to get along.
Wow. My darling, I'm getting to that level. Now I'm leaving marriage counseling. I'm going to go into marriage coaching. I am a marriage coach after I'm done with Pastor Joe. So Pastor Joe, when people come to you, you do pre-marital counseling?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's all the same counseling. I just call, if a couple's not engaged, we call it relationship counseling. If they're engaged, we call it pre-marriage counseling. If they're married, we call it marriage coaching. But it's all the same. And I wrote a book. I wrote another book about my life. It's called Encounters with God. Mama Rita, it took me 2 years to write that book.
Wow.
This book took me 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Because I've done many times, and I wrote
You are really a marriage coach.
Yes, I've done this because I'm pastoring.
Wow.
And I want to help my people. So I wrote a book, and it takes them through, there are 10 sessions.
Okay.
And there are 4 parts that I take them through. And as I walk them through this, couples that are toxic, they come in, they're ready for divorce. Some of them are separated. Many, I would say most of them, are able to be reconciled and have an incredible marriage.
Praise God. Praise
And
God.
I give the Lord the glory. And what I do, it's an interesting thing because you can read the book and learn what I do because I read them through the book.
Okay.
But there's a prophetic element to the counseling.
Okay.
And God has anointed me to do this.
Wow.
So when I sit with a couple, He tells me, the Spirit helps me understand what's going on in their home.
Wow.
When I tell them that, and they say, how do you know? I tell them the Lord is helping me to know so that you will know that there's hope for your marriage.
Wow.
But we still have to go through they have to learn the skills of how, see, I found this, prayer doesn't fix the relationship. They have to learn how, I'm not trying to, listen to me, Jesus is everything, but there are skills that you need to know how to get along with each other. And until you learn those skills, you can pray all you want. You're going to continue to trigger your partner, and you're going to be having those negative patterns appear over and over and over again.
Wow. Please, if you are listening to Reverend Joe, all our marriage counselors from across all our assemblies, on Thursday, we have coaching lessons. Marriage counselors, all our marriage counselors. We have coaching lessons with Reverend Joe on Thursday at 7 p.m. If you are coming from any of our assemblies and you are a marriage counselor and you want to be part of this training, please make a date with Reverend Joe on Thursday at 7 p.m. Right after our Armageddon prayer time, we'll be meeting Pastor Joe. Pastor Joe, when a couple sits in front of you,
Yes.
for pre-marital counseling, can you tell if the marriage will work, if the marriage will travel 10 years,
Okay.
if it travel 20 years, if it will travel 40 years? Can you tell?
No, because any couple can make it
They can make.
if they're willing to put in the work necessary.
Please let them know. Please tell them.
So here's the deal.
Good.
First of all, when a couple comes to me that's not married, I live in America. They're already having sex, even though most of them are Christians. Okay, so I asked them to commit to a few things. The first thing I asked is that, by the way, the Lord told me that I never charge for anything I do, and I don't. So the first thing I tell them is that you must take the counseling seriously.
Okay.
I'm going to give you everything I have, and I commit to the couples to be there for them for their lifetime. Okay, and I've probably done 350, maybe 400 couples so far.
Wow.
So they have to take it seriously. They have to come to the meetings and they have to work on what we go over. The second thing I ask them to commit to is to go to church together on a regular basis. Some of them are not believers, and they come to me. It's a wonderful opportunity for evangelism. I don't say they have to come to my church. I'm a kingdom guy, so I want them in the church, in an evangelical church that preaches the gospel, and many of them will come to our church, and they have support from other people. Then I tell them if they're not married, they have to commit. I ask them, are you having sex? Are you involved sexually? And the way I describe that, so I was a youth pastor. This is how I describe it. You have to commit to being pure, and here's what purity is. The bathing suit parts of the body, off limits to the eyes and to the touch.
The what?
The bathing suit parts
The bathing
of
suit
the
part.
body.
I hope somebody's listening.
There's no loophole with that. I was a youth pastor for 17 years working with teenagers. You must say it in a way that they can understand.
That's right.
Those parts of the body, those are sexual parts of the body, and they are off limits to the eyes and to the touch. Now, many of them say, you know, we live together. Yes, I know that. Do we have to move out? I live in America. It's difficult. I say, no, you don't have to move out, but you cannot touch or look at the bathing suit parts of the body. You must live pure. And every single couple except one has committed to do that. And because God's way is sex is between a man and a woman between a man and a woman, from my American friends and European friends, between a man and a
woman
after they are married. Not going to ever be ashamed of that. And when we do it His way, God's blessing comes upon that. Now for me, I became a Christian. I'm from New York City. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow, I know
And
the place.
I learned about sex from my friends on the street when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
And that was the blind leading the blind.
11 years old.
11 years old. And I did everything wrong. And at 22 years old, I was ready to end my life or kill my girlfriend or both. Because this broken relationship. And I came to know Jesus Christ, and as I started to read the Bible, I was raised Catholic, but I knew nothing about Jesus.
Okay.
And as I came to Christ, He touched my life, and then 4 weeks later, I found that it was Jesus.
Wow.
And He began to change my life, and in this area of sexuality, I realized everything I did was wrong. That not only weren't we supposed to be involved, I was living with the girl that she was unfaithful to me, and that's why I wanted to end my life, maybe end her life, and I was a mess. And I met, God touched my heart.
How old were you then?
22.
Wow.
We were living together, and He touched my life, and soon after, 4 weeks later, I became a believer because I didn't know it was Jesus. I just knew I had hope. And I found it was Jesus, and I committed myself to being sexually pure, and I was till I got married 6 years later.
Wow.
To my now wife, my wonderful wife.
Wow.
So I know that God's way is the right way. And I have to wrestle with Americans to stop having sex until they're married. But they always thank me. And when I do their wedding, and their marriage, unless they commit to that. Now, they can make a mistake and they can mess up. But if they're messing up on a regular basis, if they're not taking it seriously, I won't do the counseling.
Before we go on the commercial break, you said something, and I want you to repeat it. You said, if a couple is committed to the relationship,
Yes.
they can stay in it, they can make it work.
Absolutely.
Please let them understand that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter the crisis you're having in your relationship,
No.
it doesn't matter the quarrels and the arguments and the fight. If you want the relationship to work, if you want the marriage to travel 30 years and more like I have, you can make it work. Please let them know.
So yes, here's the fourth thing I asked them
Good.
is so they're sexually pure.
I
and
hope
then,
somebody's writing.
Yes, and then
Please make notes.
And then they need to commit that if they choose to get married, it's their choice, that it's once for a lifetime. They remove the option of separation or divorce. And I let them know that it's your choice to get married. And in the counseling, in the coaching, I'm going to show them what being married to each other is going to be like. I'm just going to hold up a mirror that projects them in the future, and I'm going to show them that if he's messy and you're expecting he's going to pick up all his clothes all the time, but he's a mess, you may need to adjust that expectation. Okay? And if she's very quiet, but you want to marry someone that's going to be a champion and going to go out and conquer the world, but she's more of an introvert, you're going to have to adjust your expectations. So I try and help them to know who that other person is.
Okay.
And I work with them on, we talk about, so we have, are we going to go to a break soon?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I can come back and explain to you what I do to help them understand. The first 5 sessions help me to know whether they're going to have a good marriage.
Oh, it's getting so interesting. I don't even want to go for a break, but we'll go for a commercial break and we'll be back with Pastor Joe. Oh my God, I am enjoying it and I'm learning so much. We will come back and go through the 5 steps.
Royal House Chapel Praise Temple at Denta presents the Mandate Service, celebrating 30 years of the ministry of the Apostle General, Reverend Sam Crunchy Ankra. This event is happening on the 18th of June 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Praise Temple Auditorium at Denta. Host Reverend Obed Kwaos Sr. For further inquiries, call us on 0244 289 040 or 0549 911 116. The Mandate Service. impact, imprint, influence. Finally, the Apostle General storms University of Ghana. The University Christian Fellowship of University of Ghana presents a 3-day power-packed encounter dubbed Jesus Saves Crusade with the Apostle General Sam Crunchy Ankara. The theme is the revelation of Jesus, Matthew 16:15. This revival is happening on Friday 25th, Saturday 26th, and Sunday 27th June 2021. On Friday and Saturday, the power nights are at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday celebration service at 7 a.m. It's happening at the Pence Field, University of Ghana, Legon. It's UG's Jesus Save Crusade with the Apostle General. You don't want to miss this life-transforming weekend.
Welcome back to Family Life with Mama RITA. If you are just joining us, my guest today, a special guest today, a marriage coach coming all the way from Texas, the US of A. We've been talking about domestic violence, and you know that's what we've been talking about in the past few weeks. And honestly, Pastor Joe, you've taught me something. That it doesn't matter what your relationship is like, you can decide that you want it to work. He's going to take us through the 5 processes that he takes his marriage counselees through. Oh my God. Please take your pen, take your notebook, take your phone, pad, take your laptop, and make notes. I don't know when I am next going to get Pastor Joe in my show. But before I go to him, I want to say a very big thank you to Francisca Afari. Francisca Afari, her company is Crepes Design. This nice, lovely necklace is coming from her. Francisca, thank you so much for sponsoring Family Life. I am looking so beautiful. Oh my God. Make sure week after week I'm wearing different ones. Please, if you want necklaces for your engagements, for your weddings, if you want hearts and fascinators or heartinators for your wedding, you want engagement funds for your engagement, your traditional marriage, please call. Oh, I wish I had her number, but you can always get her in Royal House Chapel. Francisca, Mrs. Lady Deacon, Mrs. Francisca Afari, Crepes Design. And then we also want to say a very big thank you to Vicar Jews for sponsoring us week after week. For all your ceremonies, weddings, engagements, birthday parties, please call Vicar Jews for all your juices. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you so much.
So before we went back, you were trying to tell us about the 5 steps.
Well, actually, there are 4 parts to the book I've written, and the first 2, part 1 is we talk to the couples about understanding each other.
Just a minute, Reverend Joe. So for the counselors who are coming tomorrow, please pass me the book. For the counselors who are coming tomorrow, every couple or every counselor gets this book, To Become One, a guide to experiencing oneness in the marriage relationship. So this is something every couple needs to help your counselees So please, we are not going to sell it. It's going to be free of charge. This is a gift coming from Reverend Joe to us. But trust me, if you come late, you won't get it. It's going to be first come, first serve. 7 on the dot. If you come late, you won't get it. If you come early, you will get it. God bless you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so the first part is made up of 2 sessions.
Okay.
And usually a session takes about an hour. If there are issues with the couple, it's going to take longer. But understanding each other, the first part is expectations. We talk about this is for couples that aren't married. If they are married, then we talk about the expectations that they had coming into marriage. So you find some very strange things. An expectation is simply something you expect, and it's very strong. Okay? It's not something you're hoping for, it's something you expect is going to take place. So I was working with a young couple, and the girl said she had the expectation that her soon-to-be husband would meet all of her emotional needs without her having to tell him what they were. Now, I would say that's an unrealistic expectation, okay? Because he wasn't a very sensitive guy. So we get the expectations out, and then we evaluate them. We ask, did you know that your partner, your soon-to-be partner, is expecting this to take place? And often they don't know. And then we see, is it realistic? Another situation, there was a guy, this is kind of funny, a pastor friend of mine who was getting married, and he said he had the expectation that he would have sex with his wife. Now, he had never had sex. He was 27 years old. He would have sex 3 times a day when he got married.
Wow.
Now, if you're married, you know it doesn't work that way, but that's what he was expecting. So we want to get the expectations out. It's really kind of a lot of fun, and then we evaluate. I asked, like, did you know that? No, I didn't. Is it realistic? And we evaluate that. The second session in understanding each other is we talk about their personality, their temperament. And it's kind of surface level, those first 2 sessions, but once I understand their personalities, now I can predict what's happening in their relationship, especially if they're already married. And some people are opposites in their temperament. Okay, when you marry someone, a temperament doesn't change. It's how you're hardwired. It's hardwiring, and sometimes a person, I used this before, an extrovert is marrying a person that's an introvert, but they expect the introvert to become an extrovert like them. That's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. You're hardwired a certain way. God makes us a certain way, and if we're thinking we can change a person when we get married to them, we're in for a rude awakening. It doesn't work that way. So I'm trying to help them to understand who that person is, not who they want them to be, who they really are, and are they willing, do they want to be married to a person like that? Okay, and once we get past that, then we move into the second part is made up of 3 sessions, and it's how to resolve conflict. Now, this is skills development. Those first 2 sessions help me to get to know who they are, but the second part, resolving conflict, is about learning how to do it. And this is where most couples have tremendous problems. In fact, the married couples that didn't get good pre-marriage counseling and got married, they usually have no clue how to do it, so they do it the wrong way, and that creates what's called a negative pattern that continues to happen over and over and over again. I met with a brand new couple this Tuesday night of this past week, a week ago today, and I couldn't believe it. It was an African-American and a Brazilian black person. And she was the aggressive, he was the passive, he had the strong mother and the strong sister who she felt came before her, and she was aggressive, and she was calling him every name in the book. And he was, just being passive and taking, and you can see the negative pattern. That she was strong. It's not always the man that's strong. It's a personality thing. It's not a gender thing. It's personality. And she was attacking him, and he was being defensive. So what we talk about in the first session of resolving conflict is the negative tendencies don't attack and don't defend. It's very important. The aggressive confrontational person, that's me, by the way. My wife is passive non-confrontational. My tendency, and by the way, I'm doing most of these things right now, but Mama Rita, I did it wrong for many, many years. Okay, so we're not here pointing judgment. I'm not here saying, hey, I know how to do this. I'm Italian, okay? We're very passionate.
Wow.
And my dad was a screamer and a yeller, and so was I, and my wife would just go into a cocoon. And I would dominate her, but I was shutting her down. And that's what aggressive confrontational people do to passive non-confrontational people, but they never hear about it because the passive person holds it in, but then they build a resentment, and before you know it, there's a 6-foot wall, and they won't let that person near them. So we want to say that attacking and defending are no longer allowed. I asked them to make a commitment to that. And then we talk about the styles. The passive non-confrontation is the person who avoids, they give in, they just try to avoid the confrontation at all costs, while the aggressive person, they attack, they try to win, and they intellectualize. And we try and identify these things as when you see them happen in your relationship, call time out and stop. Take a break and come back, because those negative tendencies are going to create the same results that you've been getting. And then we talk about the second session in resolving conflict is the beauty of connecting. How do you get to the place in a conflict? Because conflict's inevitable in marriage, but marriage doesn't have to be filled with arguments and fights, and we should be able to resolve a conflict, but how do we get to the place that we connect with our partner, that we are understood, they understand, and forgiveness is given and received, and you're able to resolve that conflict. You connect together. And we talk about something that's easy to say, difficult to do. We talk about that in conflict, and by the way, the counseling that I do, Mama Rita, I want to tell you, this can only work with believers.
With believers.
Because if you don't have the Holy Spirit, there is no way.
There's no way.
You have to be good-willed. If a person is not good-willed and they're trying to win at any cost, it won't work. It involves an honesty. But if you want a healthy relationship, you need that. So I don't think it's possible for a non-believer. They can try, but the believer with the Holy Spirit living within them can accomplish these things. So here's what I tell them. In conflict, you must have a desire to understand as much as you want to be understood. Now let me say that again, because it's very important. When we're in an argument, when we think we've been wronged, we want to be understood. Wait a second, why did you do that to me? But in that, if we're doing that, we only want to be understood. It's going to be a difficult confrontation. It's going to be longer and uglier and messier than it needs to be. But if in that conflict we have an equal desire to understand as well as be understood, well, we're going to approach it differently, and we're going to be able to connect quickly, which is the goal in conflict. In marriage, we want to be able to connect quickly, which helps us to avoid the wear and tear that unresolved conflict brings in a marriage. Okay? So you have to try to understand as much as be understood, and one of the ways to do this is when we are hurt and offended, instead of attacking, instead of getting defensive, we use the feelings formula. So we say things like this. I say to my wife, honey, can I talk to you? Yes. When you did what you did, it made me feel like, and I would explain to her whatever my feelings were. You see, a lot of times men are hurt, but they respond in anger. And that's where some of that domestic abuse comes. Because a man doesn't think it's okay to respond when they're hurt. They don't want to show weakness, so they get angry.
So they respond in anger.
In anger, but they're really hurt.
Okay.
So if we can, when you use the feelings formula, it forces you to deal with the emotion that you're feeling at that time. So it tremendously helped me with my wife to be able to explain to her, honey, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. Okay, so there was a time that my wife, I asked her, we were struggling financially. It was early in our marriage. I said, honey, we can't spend any more money this month. There's 2 days left in the month. So I asked her not to spend money for the next 2 days. She said, of course. I came home from work the next day. She had gone out and bought a shirt. So I blame it on my being Italian. It's no excuse. But I got so angry. It pressed my button. It's the button that triggers me, and I was so angry, but I stopped. And I said, okay, what am I feeling right now? And it took me about 10 or 15 minutes to discover it had nothing to do with the $20 that she spent on the shirt. I felt disrespected.
Okay.
And I felt she wasn't a team player when it came to us trying to make ends meet. But if I didn't stop and think, I would have attacked her.
Okay.
We would have had a long argument. So I went to her and I said, honey, can I talk to you? What is this? She said, it's a receipt. She said, I bought a shirt. It was on sale. I said, do you remember last night I asked you to not spend money for the next 2 days and you said yes? And she said, she got very scared. She started to become defensive.
Okay.
Mama Rita. Now, I didn't attack her. Why did she become defensive? Because we had a negative pattern. When she did something wrong, she was ready to be attacked.
Okay.
And she started to preemptively get defensive because we had a negative pattern. But this time, I was going to use the feelings from it. And honey, I said, when you spend money after you agree not to, it makes me feel like you don't respect me, and it makes me feel like you're not a team player when it comes to making ends meet. My wife was cooking.
Okay.
She put the knife down that was cutting the vegetables, thankfully. She came around the counter, put her arms around me, and said this. Now watch. She said, I'm so sorry that what I did made you feel like I disrespected you and made you feel like I wasn't a team player. I forgot what you asked me, which is why I bought it. Please forgive me. I'll bring the shirt back. You see, my wife wasn't disrespecting me, and she wasn't not being a team player. She just forgot. And I didn't need her, you see, because I would have came out normally if I didn't use that feelings from it. I would have attacked. She would have got defensive. It would have been a long night. And then sometime the next day, we would have connected. But we avoided all that. She didn't need to apologize. She wasn't disrespectful. She just said, I'm sorry what I did made you feel like I disrespected you. And I'm sorry that what I did made you feel like I'm not a team player. I do respect you, and I wanted to be, and that's all I needed to hear. And I go into detail in that feelings formula, but it's a wonderful way for people to communicate in a way that's easy to resolve. We resolve that conflict, and my wife and I, it doesn't take us 5 or 10 minutes to resolve.
Wow. So, number 1, expectations. Number 2, the personality. Number 3, resolving conflicts. And then under resolving conflicts, the beauty of connecting. Please clap for me here. I'm listening and I'm making notes. I hope you're also making notes. So we will get to finish the resolving conflicts and then we'll move to the 4th and the 5th.
Yes, it's actually just the 3rd and the 4th.
Oh, okay.
So the last session on resolving conflict is how to truly resolve. So here's how it works, okay? When you ask to be forgiven, when you realize what you did and you ask to be forgiven, whether it's for making the person feel that way or whether, let's say my wife just said, hey, I don't care about this, him telling me not to spend money, I'm going to spend it anyway. Well, then she can't say, I'm sorry that I made you feel disrespect. She would have disrespected me. Okay, but when you ask forgiveness, you don't just say you're sorry. You say, would you forgive me? Because, Mama Rita, that's a question. It involves an answer. So at that point, I talk about this baton of responsibility. So watch. When a person is offended, the baton of responsibility is in the offended person's hand. They're upset. They need to tell the other person they're upset. When they say, hey, I'm upset. When you did this, it made me feel like this. The baton of responsibility is transferred to their hand. Once they understand it, they say, I'm sorry for what I did. Would you forgive me? The baton in the other person's hand. You must answer the question. So when a person says, yes, I forgive you, the conflict is resolved. And we cannot bring it up again with emotion.
Okay.
You can bring it up again as a point of reference, but you can't be angry about it again.
Okay.
Because when you forgive, it's over.
Wow.
Now, if the person says, I don't forgive you, now, I hate to admit, there have been a few times I didn't want to forgive her. And why? Because my heart is hard, because I want her to suffer longer. But at that point, the Holy Spirit is now dealing with me. Even though she caused the offense, when she asks to be forgiven, she can do no more. And at that point, I can forgive, or I can hold on to it. And in those moments that I've not wanted to forgive her, the Holy Spirit has been heavy on me.
Wow.
And finally, I forgive, and then the baton of responsibility is hot. It's not meant to, it's meant to be handed back and forth and throw it in the ocean. Okay? So that's, and I teach them, and then the couples I work with, the ones that are married, I say, now, do you agree that forgiving each other, it is a divine mandate for the Christian to forgive? How much more in marriage? So when they tell me, yes, we believe it's a divine mandate, I say, now tell me all the things you're holding against each other.
Wow.
I had one man, 22 major things holding against his wife of 10 years. I had
22 major things.
Major, and he didn't want, it took me weeks to get him to write them down because he was afraid to tell her because she was so aggressive. He said, I'm not going to tell her, she's going to beat me down.
Wow.
He did it, they're still married. I had a couple, a woman, married 7 years, 37 major things against her spouse. We went through every single one. We used the feeling form.
37 major things.
Major.
And these are things that they've kept for so long.
And she went through every one, and this man was repentant, he was broken, he forgave her of every one, but the marriage was dead, and she divorced him. She couldn't love him. And I didn't want that to happen, but that unforgiveness, it festers. So, but most couples get through it, and we don't move on to part 3 until everything from the past is resolved.
Wow.
But it's magical because everything changes. Because when they have unresolved issues, it's like a wall that's between them, and as we, one by one, we take the bricks down, and then you see their hearts warm up to each other. The couple I met with last Tuesday, God spoke to me about what was happening in their home. They were shocked. And I know it's, by the way, marriage coaching for me is the funnest thing I do. Of all the things I do, I'm a pretty good preacher, but this is the best thing I do. God has anointed me to do this. And as he speaks, as he helps me understand what's going on, it's so exciting. And I fall in love with the couples. And this is not, even though I can teach about this, but the best way to do this kind of coaching is just with one couple and the counselor. It's the best way. Because every couple is unique.
Every couple is unique.
And Mama Rita, I fall in love with every single couple. I just love them, and it's a joy for me. So once we deal with the past, can we keep going? Then we go into part 3, which I call skills development.
Skills development.
And skills development has 3 sessions. The first one is about finances. I call it first comes love, then comes money. Finances. Because in America, the #1 source of conflict in marriage is finances. And it's because we don't have enough finances. And the reason in America we don't have enough finances is not because we don't earn enough, it's because we spend too much. We have the credit card, okay? And couples get into debt. So I teach them the things about marriage. First of all, when a couple is married and $1 is earned, whose is it? It's ours. It's ours is the husband and wife. They own everything together. When $1 is owed, they both owe it. And that includes the assets and debts that they bring into the marriage. And then we talk about some other things. And I just help them to get an understanding, an agreement. I'm not trying to teach them what to believe. I'm trying to help them to come to an agreement in how they as a couple are going to handle their family's finances. And it's very good. It's very helpful. We talk about money personalities. There are 5 money personalities. There's the spender, the saver, the planner, the risk taker, and the flyer. Okay? And
the spender,
saver, the planner, the risk taker, which is the entrepreneur, and the flyer. And we talk about which one, how they relate to money, and which of those describe them. And then we talk about how they interact with each other in a healthy way. So if a saver is married to a risk taker, when that risk taker takes risks, the saver freaks out, okay? So we just help them to learn how to work together. But then when we're done with that, I give them a private session on how to create wealth.
How to create wealth.
And
Wow.
in America, to not be wealthy, you have to be intentional to not be wealthy because of the opportunity. Now, my son Emmanuel is here, and he helps me to he's been to America, stays with me. I own many houses. I own 13 homes,
Wow.
real estate. I was able to freeze my salary 6 years ago at the church. Never need another raise because the Lord told me that I didn't have to depend on the church to provide for me and my family, that I would depend on Him. And I can do other things as long as I don't compromise my call as a pastor.
Okay.
So I began to buy houses. And in America, we buy houses, but really the bank owns the house. We have a mortgage. And if you know how to use the system, you can buy many, many houses. You can buy your first house and then save up money for a down payment and rent your first and move into your second.
Okay.
Now you have 2 houses.
Wow.
And I teach many couples how to multiply houses because houses go up. There's many ways that you create wealth, but real estate will provide you with wealth. Your job provides income, the money you spend, but real estate and other things can create wealth. And I teach couples how to do
Wow.
that. And usually, Mama Rita, one of the people, they zone right in because they're wired for that.
Wow.
And I teach them how to do that.
My darling, you are learning so much today. You are not only learning about marriage and how to keep your marriage, but you're also learning about how to create wealth.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So then the next skills development is, we call it leaving and cleaving. It's the idea of when a couple gets married, a brand new family is formed. Now, I don't know how this will be received in Africa, but I need to tell you what I believe is the scripture, the truth, that when my son married his wife, they are not an extension of our family. It was the birth of a brand new family.
Wow.
And 2, in marriage, it says, only in marriage, in the scriptures, does it say 2 become 1. Now, it doesn't mean you lose your individuality. It means 2 people now have the opportunity to live as if they're one. And they must, a man shall leave his father and mother. So the loyalty is no longer to the family of origin.
Okay.
The loyalty is to the new marriage and the new family, and shall cleave to his wife, come together in such no one can come between you, and the 2 shall be one. So we want couples. I want a biblical marriage involves a couple that is learning the art of living as if they are one. But the problem is that many times people try to come between us.
Okay.
It's the parents and the in-laws, it's the sibling, it's the friends, it's the children. And the most important thing in living as if you're one and not letting people come between you, because if this is me and this is my wife, when we got married, we came together, no one comes between us.
Not even the children.
No one. No one. And the children, oh, they try. Oh, my youngest son, Jojo, oh my. He was a master manipulator. Because children will do anything to get what they want.
Okay.
If it means dividing you to conquer, you as their parents to conquer, they'll do it happily just to get what they want. A couple has to have a plan to prevent that. And just simply, I teach them about something called the decision-making room. And it's not a literal room, but it can be. But the decision-making room is where the couple makes decisions, and no one is allowed in that room except the 2 of them. Now, it doesn't have to be a room. It just means it's a place where it's just the 2 of you, and you discuss things and you decide. And when you walk out, even if you're not in agreement, when you come to a decision, no one knows that there's been disagreement. Okay. Everyone hears the same thing.
Wow. Wow.
So.
Wow.
And you're finding, and as I'm working with the couples, it's so exciting, you're finding the cracks, the places that they don't have healthy biblical understanding, and you can help them, and they start to have hope, because I've written the book, and they say, boy, this applies to us, so they feel like there's hope for them, because we all struggle with these issues. And then the last area in the skills development is taking care of the home. So, and then raising children. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book on children. I'm going to be speaking about raising children as a father this Sunday. But we talk about, the household chores. For me, my parents, when I grew up, my father worked outside the home, my mother worked inside the home. They never were a team. I never saw the teamwork. And it's different in America today. Both the husband and the wife typically are both working, and they should share the household chores.
Okay.
So, and even I think as a man, I think the man's primary responsibility is to provide, but the wife can help with the provision.
That's right.
So the woman's primary responsibility is to manage the home, but the husband can help too. And I think the most important thing on running the household is that a husband and wife have a mindset of being a team. My wife and I did this. It was about 12 years into our marriage that we just did what we saw our parents do. But about 12 years into the marriage, we began to work. And then we talk about raising children. But I'm going to talk about some of that stuff on Sunday morning here at the church, which is a great honor for me.
I can't wait for Sunday.
Yes.
My darling. Oh, I'm
I
learning
have 40
so
minutes,
much.
but I think I may need more, but we'll have to see.
Oh. I'll work something out from the bedroom.
Yes.
So that you can have some more minutes.
And
because I can't wait for Sunday.
Yes. And speaking of the bedroom, the last part 4, is called oneness. Experiencing oneness. Okay? And it's 2 parts. The first, we talk about spiritual oneness. How does a couple experience Christ together? See, when we're single, we know the Lord, we have ways that we connect with God personally. We connect with Him in many ways. Some people pray in the car, they pray in the shower, I pray in my hot tub. I have all places in my yard where I have prayer stations where I pray and spend time with God. And when we get married, they stay private, personal places, but now we have the opportunity to experience Christ together. And we begin to do that. And I talk to couples that one of the ways is we go to church together and we learn. We hear teaching and we learn together. Other ways is we can serve together. Other things we can do is we can pray together. Okay. And for me and my wife, that has been the most significant way that we experience Christ together. We pray together. Now, our children are grown. When my oldest son, who is just a magnificent businessman for Christ.
Wow.
But when he was a teenager, oh my. Pastor's kid, I know, but he didn't seem to remember that. We had to fast and pray for ourselves because he was breaking every rule in the book. All the 10 he never murdered anyone, but I think he thought about it. And he caused us, I'm exaggerating slightly, but he caused us to fast and pray. When you pray with your spouse and you see God answer those prayers, particularly for your children, my children all love the Lord.
Wow.
And when you see that and you've done that together, and and I find that this is, again, I'm not the biggest fan of America because of the way we don't understand. I like Africa. I come here and I see Christians who love Jesus and give it all. I meet with couples. Oh, we never pray together. How long are you married? 15 years. No, we've never prayed together. What is that? The first date I went on with my wife, we prayed together.
I like that. Please let them know.
Yes, you pray, you're the man, you lead. Lead doesn't mean you're the boss.
Them.
You lead by initiating the right direction. The first date with the woman I married, I shared my testimony, and then I said, I want to hear hers. And we shared that. I said to her a chapter from Philippians on our first date, and we have always prayed together.
Your first date?
First date.
Was not restaurants, was not partying.
We went to the restaurant,
yes,
but we did those things in the
restaurant. You did those things. You ended up praying together.
Yes. And by the way,
their first date.
And by the way, she was used to dating doctors, not pastors, and I had to borrow money to pay the bill from her because she ate so much. I was so humiliated. But here's what happened. I set the tone. And men, you're leaders. And you single men, you're leaders. And you set the tone for that relationship.
I like that.
You want to be pure, you set the tone. Listen to me. Any man can get almost any woman to give in sexually. You set the tone. It's not her fault. You lead that way. Do you know why my wife respects me? Even though she spent the $20, okay? She made me feel she didn't, but I know my wife respects me. You know why? We never touched the bathing suit parts of the body in our 2.5 years of dating until we were married. And that is so rare, but I knew from the way I abused sex before I was a Christian. I knew that was the right way, and God blesses that. And I want to challenge you young men, lead the way. Lead the way in that. So we teach about experiencing God together, and then the last session is on physical oneness. Now, I'm not going to go into that too much today, but I go into that, and if they're not married, then we do that 2 days before the wedding.
2 days.
Well, we don't want to prime the pump if we're not going to start the engine.
Tomorrow, when you meet my counselors, let them know.
Yes, only
2 days before the wedding.
Just because we don't want, but then I explain to them that for a man, let's see if you can understand this. I'm going to be very appropriate. For a man to meet the needs of a woman sexually, he must demonstrate patience and self-control. He must learn to delay gratification, because a man sexually is like a microwave oven and a woman is like a crock pot. Okay? I'm not going to say more. When you're single, you withhold from being sexually involved with the woman. That's delaying gratification, being patient, and self-control. Those are the very things that will help you meet her needs after you're married. So many men that want to jump into sex at young and they want to talk about how great they are, then why are they selling all those pills, those blue pills? Every TV show in America, the men start out like a lion, but they don't do it God's way, and then they finish out like a lamb. When we do it God's way, and by the way, I'm not against those things that can help us in ways, but when we do it God's way, God's blessing can be upon that physical relationship, because God, it was His idea. The sexual relation. When I first heard about it, I told you I was 11. I came home, my friends told me on the street. I came home that night, and I sat down at dinner, and they told me about this. And I was like, this is strange. And I looked at my mother. She was sitting there. And I looked at my dad, and I thought about what they told me. I was 11. I looked at her, and I said, no, that can't be. Okay? It was so strange to think of what God designed. But He designed the sexual relationship. It's his way. It's one of the ways that a married couple experiences oneness in a physical way. In fact, the sexual relationship in marriage will distinguish the relationship between the husband and wife. It distinguishes their relationship from every other relationship they'll ever have, which is why adultery is so serious and so destructive. But I want couples to know that it's something that God blesses. He gave it to us to enjoy, and not just to procreate, to enjoy and to experience that oneness. And by the time I get to that, most couples are ready to go on and have a great marriage.
Wow. It's been so wonderful with Pastor Joe. Expectations. What do you expect in the relationship? What do you expect from each other? And he says, are you being realistic about your expectations? And then the personality, the temperaments. And he wants you to know that the temperaments don't change. And then resolving conflict. Don't attack, don't defend. I was listening. And then the beauty of connecting. I'll come to it. When couples who have never been married come for pre-marital counseling and they tell you, we've never quarreled, we've never argued, what do you think? I'll come to this. The beauty of connecting, understanding and forgiving each other, and then how to truly resolve your issues. Do you learn to forgive? Do you bring up issues after it's been forgiven? Do you bring it up with emotions, or you just refer to it? My darling, after you've forgiven, forgive. Don't bring it out with emotions. In other words, don't get angry about something that your spouse or your partner has asked for your forgiveness. And then he goes into skill development about finance. And he says There are about 4: the spender, the saver, the planner. I don't know which one I am. I'm sure my husband will say I'm the saver. Hey, I am the spender. The planner, which my husband is, he knows how to plan for the family resources, and he saves. The risk taker, and then
The flyer.
LR.
Y-E-R.
What's the flyer?
They fly by the seat of their pants. They don't want to know about it. They want someone else to manage it for them.
Oh, okay. And then he also teaches about how to create wealth. And then he goes to leaving and cleaving. And then decision making in the room. My darling, I love this one. In leaving and cleaving, you need to know how to decide for the two of you without a third party coming in, and then taking care of your home and raising your children. It needs to be a teamwork, and then experiencing oneness. How do you connect to Christ together? And then the last one, please, 2 days before the wedding, 2 days, physical oneness. Pastor Joe, I've been so blessed myself. I can't wait for Thursday.
Yes.
And I can't wait for Sunday. We will go for a little break, and then we'll take about 2 or 3 questions.
Okay.
Welcome back to Family Life with Mama RITA. Oh my God, I'm enjoying it so much. My guest today is Pastor Joe, coming all the way from Texas. Oh my God, he's really a marriage coach. My darling, if you are just joining us, you have missed a lot. You would have to go back and listen to Mama RITA on Family Life, on Mama RITA Facebook, Sam Crunchy Facebook, or YouTube. My darling, you would have missed a lot. And if you want to hear more from Pastor Joe, please go to Crossroads. Crossroads. CROSSROADSARL. One word. So Crossroads ARL.org/Joe Knows. The Joe, JOEKNORS. So Crossroads ARL.org/Joe Knows. Please go on and listen to Pastor Joe, listen to all his teachings on marriage. Oh my God, I can't wait to finish this show and go and listen to it. I'm learning so much myself today. I don't know when I can get to a marriage coach. Please, leave me on the level of love. Pastor Joe, what will you say to a couple that come to you for pre-marital counseling and they've never quarreled, they've never argued, they've never exchanged words, everything has been so peaceful. They've been going out for 5 years, for 3 years, for 2 years, even 6 months, and you know there's never been a rift between them. What do you think about it?
Well, and you assess the situation. So it's not going to be 5 years, but if they've been dating 6 months or maybe even a year and they say they've never argued, it just means they need more time. because they will. But if they've dated 3 years and have never argued, this is a big problem. Because I know that there have been conflicts, but one or maybe both of them are not speaking the truth. And you must speak the truth in a loving way. I would rather hear the truth in a non-loving way than not hear the truth at all. So the most dangerous of couples is when they're both passive and neither is telling, or one person is not telling what's going on. That's the most dangerous because it builds resentment. And 10 years into the marriage, 15 years into the marriage is dead.
Wow.
So that is, now when they both are aggressive, it's that creates the possibility of a toxic relationship. But at least we have a chance to work with it and deal with it. And sometimes they realize it's not worth it. Sometimes I don't ever tell a couple whether they can or can't get married. They don't need my blessing. Let me tell you why. If they need my blessing to get married, they're not going to tell me what's really happening.
Oh, okay.
They'll hide that from me.
Oh, that's true.
Because they want to get married.
Oh,
so now we're wasting everyone's time.
Unless are listening to Pastor Joe, the counselors don't need your blessing to get married. I hope we are learning something. And I hope, Pastor Joe, you mentioned it on Thursday.
Yes,
they don't need our blessing. If they need our blessing to get married, trust me, when they come, they will pretend. They will hide things from us. They'll let us know everything is okay. And then we will give them our blessing to get married. But once they don't need our blessing, in other words, they can go into marriage with or without us, then they are ready to open up and tell us about all the issues. Then we can solve it before they go, oh my God.
Yes, so I learned that, and it's very important. It's just simple. I just tell the couples, hey, it's not my job to say whether you get married. It's your choice. I'm going to help you know what it's going to be like, and I'll let them know that, they don't need that blessing. And then they will tell me what's going on, and then I can help them to learn how to deal with it. And it makes a big difference because I don't want to waste my time. And sometimes it takes them a few weeks to realize they can't, because some of them are strangers. I don't know them. People recommend. I don't really advertise to do this because, again, I'm a pastor of a church. And I preach every week, but this I do on the side. But many of the couples will come to our church, but I always make time for everyone that comes. Now, I don't know if I'll always be able to do that. That's why I want to train your people. Because, but anyway, but yeah, so, and once they realize that, and because the Bible...
Please don't forget to send your questions.
Oh, yeah.
All the questions you have for Pastor Joe, please send it to us. Please send all your questions. If your questions are a lot, trust me, he would have to stay for another week and answer all your questions before he goes away. But please do send all your questions to us in the studio here, and we will make sure he would answer them before he leaves. Oh my God, I wish I can have Pastor Joe for a month in my studio. Oh my God. Please, I hope you didn't forget your point. You were making something
so
very
here's
important.
the other thing. When the couple comes, usually one person is passive, the other person's aggressive. Because they click well together. So I often, in the beginning of the counseling, the first 3 or 4 weeks, I have to speak for the passive person. Because they can't get their point across. And I use this term, you can't connect unless you think about you have an itch. Okay, so if my wife was here and I said, honey, come on the studio, I have an itch, can you scratch it? My wife would say, yes, I can. And I say, go ahead and scratch it. She's going to say, where is it? And I say, it's on my back. Okay, where? It's, okay, on the right side, up, to the left, down, over a little bit, up. Ah, you got it. Scratch the itch, okay? In conflict, we have to be able to let the person know how we're hurt. The passive person doesn't do that. So I have to do it for them. And the aggressive person will listen to me, and then the passive person gets quiet, and I'm explaining to the aggressive person how they're hurting them, where the itch is. And if you want to make this itch go away, you have to stop dominating. You have to stop doing whatever it is that you're doing. But I can't, during the counseling, it has to change from me speaking for that person to them speaking for themselves. And I have to help them do that. And it provides a lot of coaching with the aggressive person. Thank them when they tell you, say, hey, I need to talk to you. When you did this, it made me feel like this. Don't say, no, I didn't. Don't do that, because you'll shut them down. You need to thank them, even if you don't agree, because we need to get that. For a healthy marriage, that passive person has got to know they can tell the aggressive person how they feel. Otherwise, there's going to be resentment.
What happens when you have two passive people?
Okay, it's rare, but it's the biggest problem.
Okay.
Because they'll get married, they'll be happy, but first of all, when they're passive, they're usually both introverted.
Okay.
So they have a tendency to have a boring life.
Okay.
Because when two extroverts get married, they always want to run and be busy, and they never see each other, okay? But when you have an extrovert and an introvert marry, and some people are a mix of both, but it's a balance, and it's a balance. One person is pulling them to go out, the other person is causing them, but when they're both passive, they tend to not do a lot. They stay home, they get bored, and both of them don't bring up their conflict.
And what if you have two aggressive people?
Well, you need a referee. You hire a referee to go live with them. They can have, here's the thing. Those situations create an opportunity for a person to grow.
Okay.
So you say, can two aggressive people marry? When we get into the temperaments, I didn't get into the details, you have opposites. And should an opposite get married? Well, if they're willing to put in the work necessary to connect with that person, they're going to grow. Because when you have to learn to connect with someone that's not like you, you grow, and it brings out the best in you. If you're not willing to grow, if you think that your way is the right way, it's going to be a problem.
Wow.
And they start to realize when they're not married and they come, after about 5 or 6 sessions, they know whether they want to get married or not.
Wow.
And sometimes, I'm going to say 1 in maybe 15 will not get married.
Wow.
Which I know I prevented a divorce.
Wow.
Because they weren't willing to put in the work necessary to be able to connect with each other.
It means my husband and I have done so well.
So well.
In coming 35 years in marriage. Because trust me, we have done a lot of work on ourselves. Both of us are aggressive. I don't know who is more aggressive. I think I'm less and he's more. Oh, Pastor Joe, we have really enjoyed you. I wish this show would not end, but our time is up. Please bring your closing remarks, whatever you want us to take home with, and then we'll.
So here's what I'd like to say. First of all, if you're in a marriage and you're struggling, there's hope. You're not the only one. If I've talked about things and you identify, if some of the things I've talked about that we teach couples and said, wow, if we could only learn that, you can learn that. Okay? You trust God to help you to grow, to be the match for that person that you married that they need you to be. Okay, it's not just about you. It's about the two of you learning how to be one together. And don't lose hope. The other thing is, I would encourage you to go to my webpage. I think you got the spelling wrong. It's Joe Knows, the second part of it, Knows. And you can listen to some of these things. I've talked about all of these areas in a little more detail. You can listen to those things, and I'm hoping, I would love to be able to come back. I have a place in my heart for Ghana. I'm not here by accident. This is a place I get invited to go other places, but this is a place that I'm going to offer myself. But there's not going to be enough time for me to counsel you, so I'm going to work with other counselors, and you're going to be able to come here and have someone sit down with you and walk you through these steps. And as you learn the skills, you're going to be able to be a marriage made in heaven, because now the title of the book is Two People Become One, but it's also the how to become one. So it's kind of a double meaning. Two become one, easier said than done. But this book will help you to learn how to become one with your spouse, You work on it. If you put the energy into it, you will not be sorry. And for me and my wife, we had to learn. You know why? Because divorce and separation are never an option with us. When we got married, I tried to warn my wife, are you sure you want to do this, honey? Because you're going to be stuck with me for a lifetime. She made that commitment, and we have that commitment. We never use the divorce word. You do not use those words. You don't throw that around. But if the marriage is not working, don't bury it under the, get help. And people can come alongside you and help you. And if there's anything that I can do to help the people that are going to help you, I'm going to be at your service in that way. And I hope that you will let the world see. You see, as Christians, we should have better marriages. We should have better everything. And it's available. It's possible. The Holy Spirit will let us do it, but we've got to put the work in. And I've been putting that work in. Listen, I haven't told you this, and I haven't told you this. My wife has a very serious mental illness.
Wow.
And my wife has suffered. She's doing better now. She has suffered it many times in our marriage, and she's had to be hospitalized this past winter 3 times.
Wow.
And I learned how to be the husband to that.
Wow.
And we've suffered, and I've gone through the school of brokenness. You say, Joe, you don't know how hard it is? If I ever get the chance to tell you our story, it's in my book, Encounters with God.
Wow.
And but you see, God brought us together. And the Lord told me this when my wife was suffering at one of the worst times. He said, I kept asking him to take her sickness away. He said, Joe, put your arms around her illness and embrace it. You will find my will going through this, embracing, not around it. Accept it and walk through it. And the Lord has given me a compassion for people with illness, with mental illness. And I have stayed true. I've never thought for 1 minute about leaving my wife. My wife has been hospitalized many times. She was out of the house when the kids were young for 5 months and went through treatments to help her, but never for a minute did I even consider separation or divorce. And our marriage today is the best it's ever been and only going to get better. There's hope for you, and I don't have a perfect marriage, but my marriage is being perfected, and so can yours.
My darling, you don't have an excuse. You don't have any excuse. It doesn't matter what your relationship is like and your marriage is like. You can make it work. There is hope. Mr. Joe, thank you for sticking to your wife. Thank you for standing with her. Thank you that in spite of what her medical conditions are, you have said to yourself, there will be no divorce. I believe that today, the whole of heaven is saluting you.
Thank you.
And the whole of heaven is clapping for you. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you. My darling, I don't want to know. Make a date with me, same time, week, my marriage that have come in and said, and if there are any plans, we'll see if I would or do mama. Until then, please don't forget to Crossroads AROAWS. God bless you from the studios and from my team, Powerline and